Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to After Hours Conversations for Music Educators. We're excited that you're joining us for tonight's conversation. We've got a lot of great stuff that we look forward to covering here. In just a few minutes, we're going to get started in just a moment or two as everybody makes their way in and gets comfortable. Before we get started, I've got just a couple of announcements that I want to make, some housekeeping things here for tonight. First off, just like all of our webinars, don't forget to direct all of your questions for tonight's conversation to that Q&A box rather than the chat box. That's what we keep an eye on during the conversation. So again, if you've got something for myself or you've got a question for Jeremy, be sure to use that Q&A box for us. Looking ahead, we've got two more great conversations. We're going to take a little hiatus with After Hours and fire it back up in October. But after tonight, we've got two more. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, August 11th, we've got a panel discussing middle school classroom procedures. We're going to be talking with middle school directors. How are they laying out their classroom? Their storage locker room, social distancing, instrument hygiene. We're really going to talk about the nuts and bolts of the upcoming fall semester. And then next Tuesday, August 18th, for Habits of a Successful Musician, we're going to host the author, Scott Rush, and he's going to be joining us to talk about what is this new habit series that's so popular and how can we use it in an online format. So we look forward to hosting Mr. Rush. Again, that's next week, August 18th. As a quick reminder, all of our resources discussed tonight, including a PD letter and all of the previous recordings, can be found online at amromusic.com/after hours. Hey, and while you're at it, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. It's called After Hours Conversations for Music Educators. We hit our 500th download just a day or two ago. We're real excited, and we'd like to thank everybody that's been following us wherever they get their podcasts. And lastly, we've got some questions. If you've been wondering how you can support the After Hours webinar and podcast series, here's how you can help. The company I work for, Amro Music, has graciously offered to continue supporting this series, including our Zoom subscription and the production expenses associated with the podcast. So you can support After Hours by purchasing your classroom supplies, books, and other accessories from Amro's Director Services team. We've got two great guys up there, Seth and Alan, and you can contact them at seth@amromusic.com and alan@amromusic.com. So that's enough from me. Let's hear from our guest speaker tonight, Jeremy Payne. Good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Man, we're so excited to have you here. So I know we're going to talk a lot about microphones and tech solutions and various things, but before we dive into that, man, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, and I apologize for having kind of two different logins here. I don't know if you can pin my video there, Nick, just for the time being.
Sure.
That way everyone gets to look at my ugly mug. But I got my my start in the industry, the musical instruments industry, working in retail. I started out as a guitar and trumpet instructor there. I'm a elementary, middle, high school band nerd. Played mostly brass instruments and some woodwinds there, but in my spare time, I play guitar mostly. That's my main instrument. I sing in a band. I play bass, drums, piano. So I do quite a bit in the music world, but my day-to-day gig, I am the brand director for a company called The Music People. And we are the manufacturer of Onstage, which we make a bunch of stands and accessories, cases, that sort of thing. And we also distribute pro audio equipment. And that's kind of what we're going to dial in on tonight, looking at all the different options in the pro audio world and how we can use those in a COVID environment.
Perfect. So when somebody says that they're a distributor, what exactly does that mean?
Sure. Great question. So we do not sell directly to the end user. We sell to our retail partners like Amro Music. And we are a resource to them, and by extension, you as well. And so we're basically, we don't manufacture the microphone, but we know a lot about it and how it works together with all the different components that are required in an audio system. So that knowledge, and then also the conglomeration of all those products is a value add for our retail partners, and again, hence you by association.
Yeah. So you guys have all these relationships with manufacturers all over the world. You bring things to the United States and then you help get them distributed out to the appropriate person. So, of course, I'm familiar with you guys. I mean, you guys do a lot in this particular world, but you kind of fly under the radar for a lot of the end users. But I suspect there's a lot of people that have your products inside their classroom. So, well, let's dive in and talk a little bit about, and I know you've got different segments kind of divided up in this presentation here. And so I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of share with us some of the things that you want to talk about tonight.
All right, great. Well, let me get my screen shared here. And you should be seeing it now, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so we already kind of went over some of this, except I didn't mention that I'm a extensive ham bone and kazooist. Those are what I got my degree in, actually. That's not true at all. No, we're going to look at solutions in two major areas, and we're going to branch off a little bit. And as Nick mentioned, don't be shy to throw questions in the Q&A. I know that this is not everybody's cup of tea, right? There's a lot involved in audio, and if you're working with trumpets and saxophones on a day-to-day basis, it was certainly new to me at one point in time. So please don't be shy to ask questions. There's no such a thing as a dumb question, at least not with me. So we're going to look at two major areas: products that can help us teaching in a virtual or a hybrid environment, and then some things that are really focused on the physical classroom. And as a rule of thumb, I'm going to try and not get too nerdy on you. We're going to make the solutions really easy to use. You don't have to have some audio engineering degree or experience in order to use any of these products. We're going to definitely pick products that give you a noticeable improvement, not just like, really, I spent $100 or $200 to get that. You will notice it, and we're going to have audio clips to show you. It's also going to be universal when we're talking about products being used on mobile devices, whether it's our phone, our tablet, our laptop. We're going to make sure that they work on Zoom, Skype, etc. And generally speaking, we're going to try and make them inexpensive as well. I mean, relatively speaking, audio gear, there's a broad range as far as prices go, but we're going to try and make it inexpensive with the thought in mind that you may have to be going to your school district and trying to implement these in every single classroom in some situations, which we understand is going to add up. And we're really going to try and improve the student's experience and the instructor's experience where we can as well. So on those 2 points, to improve the student's experience, we need to add microphones to our devices. That's what's going to give them a great quality audio and keep them more engaged. We could request that they use headphones or earbuds so that that improves their experience as well, because the speaker on your phone or your tablet, or even a laptop, which is probably what they're going to be logging in for class on, they're not designed to be very good. That's what we're talking about here today. And then as far as improving the teacher's experience, a good pair of headphones or earbuds can go a really long way in you being able to hear your students on the other end. We could ask them to get a microphone, kind of the reversal of what we're going to do to improve their experience, but that's probably a lot less likely. So that might be a little bit out of our control. So understand the limitations there, but we're going to touch base on all of this regardless. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about microphones. Now, when you have a higher quality microphone on your end, the experience on the other end comes out a lot better. And you don't have to spend a ton of money for a great outboard microphone. And some of them are as simple as this device here that plugs right into the lightning port or the charging port on your iPhone or an iPad. Now, this is only usable for those iOS devices, so it won't work with your Android or a laptop or anything like that. However, if you do have that iOS device, this is pretty much my favorite solution, and which is why I lead with it. You literally just plug it in and it works. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to download an app. You don't have to change any settings in your phone. It just takes over as the microphone. Now, as I kind of hinted at, the microphone that's built into your phone or your tablet, the nice way to put it is it's absolute garbage, right? They're trying to give you an awesome camera. They're trying to give you an awesome screen and form factor, battery life. The last thing that in this case, Apple is concerned about is that microphone. And it's pretty terrible. And we will see a difference in just a second. One thing I will point out before we listen to some audio is you can kind of see that there's a little hinge. You can see where I'm pointing here. So you can angle that away from you, towards you. So you can really direct the microphone to pick up this source, whether it's you or someone that's in front of you. So this is a nice thing to point out, that if you're working from home or you're in the classroom, whether you're behind the desk or in front of the desk walking around, you can kind of just quickly grab and change the angle of that microphone so that students that may be dialed in virtually still get a good audio experience. So the $1 million question, how much of a difference does it make? If you have earbuds or headphones nearby, the best way to hear the difference is to use those as opposed to the speaker that's on your laptop or your phone or your tablet, your desktop, whatever it is you're dialed in from. Headphones are usually the best way to get a noticeable audio difference, as we're going to touch on later. So if you really want to hear the difference, grab those and plug them in now. Otherwise, I'm going to click back and forth a little bit. So the audio sample that we're going to listen to starts with a woman who's speaking, and she's going to play a little bit of harp. And it's going to go between her internal iPhone 11 microphone, and she'll even kind of talk you through that. And then she's going to switch over to the Shure MV88. She's going to speak and again play harp. The phone is located about an arm's length from her face when she's speaking and from the harp. So it's not too far. It's not right up in her grill either. It's kind of nearby. So here we go. And then we'll pause and just have a little discussion on it.
Okay, I've switched over to our first setup, which is the iPhone 11's internal microphone.
So everyone's hearing that okay? Nick, you're hearing that?
Yeah.
Great.
Now, I recently upgraded from the iPhone 7S to the 11, and I find that the audio has improved a lot with the new phone. So I guess we'll find out shortly. So you're hearing my voice through the internal microphone right now. And here's how the harp sounds. Now, and by the way, I have this set up about an arm's length away from my face and my harp, just so you know how far we are.
So before I even go into the harp, I'm actually going to jump ahead and listen to her speaking with the Shure MV88. So we're hearing kind of voice versus voice, harp versus harp. So what I would characterize some of the things that I heard, and I never like telling people what you should be hearing, but it's pretty clear. The iPhone 11 microphone, pretty impressive. It's a lot better than a lot of other phone mics and laptop mics that I've heard. But you can hear some reverberance in the room, right? You can kind of hear the sound bouncing around in her little home office that she's in. So let's go ahead and listen to the Shure MV88 with her spoken word. Really quick, I'm actually going to go back, give you a little bit more of that iPhone 11, then I'm going to switch, just so we can get like a really quick comparison.
Now, I recently upgraded from the iPhone 7S to...
Okay, now I'm going to jump ahead to where she's speaking with the Shure MV88.
Attached to my phone via the Lightning port. And again, the phone is about an arm's length away. So
noticeable difference. I'm going to switch back and forth really quick.
External microphone. Now, I recently upgraded from the iPhone phone via the Lightning port. And again, the phone is about an arm's length away. So, and I find that the audio has improved a lot with the new phone. The perfect location for audio,
so
you can find out.
Right away, I hear a noticeable difference. All that background noise is virtually gone with the Shure MV88. Everything seems a lot more well balanced. It doesn't just seem like I get this weird smattering of low end and really high end and no mid range. That Shure MV88 really does a good job of balancing that frequency spectrum and making it sound really natural. And here's more of the Shure MV88 spoken word.
So it's now attached to my phone via the Lightning port. And again, the phone is about an arm's length away.
So now let's hear some music, right? Because that's what we're here to talk about. Here's harp with the iPhone. Beautiful playing, by the way. And here it is with the iPhone, or I'm sorry, the Shure MV88. Again, a lot less room reverberance. I'm going to go back to the iPhone.
How far we are. Here's a
So you can hear that room reverb there. And one more time on the Shure. So again, I think the big difference is the mid-range and the removal of that background noise. So
that's really significant. And I know at the spring, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out, hey, how are we going to migrate to this online platform and this hybrid learning? And I suspect at some point, what we're going to have to address is kids are spending the 6, 7, 8 hours in front of their screens, is how do we decrease fatigue on some of these devices? And I have to imagine that an improved audio quality would substantially improve that and decrease their fatigue. Noticeable difference on that, Jeremy. Thanks for finding that video clip.
absolutely. And we'll hear more of some other products here. So that's a really easy solution. I think the biggest advantage, other than the sound improvement, is you guys sell this for 149 bucks, which is an amazing price. And it just plugs in and plays. It's so simple for setup.
Yeah. And I could see too, for teachers that are like she was doing, private teachers that are at home teaching online, piano teachers, lesson studio instructors, that would be a really popular thing because one microphone kind of resolves both her voice and her instrument.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So moving on here to another product. This is the Samson Go Mic. And so what's nice about this is it works for your laptop. It'll work for an iPhone. It'll work for Android. This will work for anything. And the price is really attractive at just about 42 bucks. So it's a nice small form factor. You can kind of see it clipped on top of a laptop here in this top photo, but you don't have to attach it that way. You can just rest it on top of a desk like you see here in the bottom. The little clip kind of turns into a kickstand sort of. And it looks like a little baby recording mic, right? It's a tiny little cute thing. And I'll share a couple things. We're going to touch more on polar patterns a little bit later on, but it has switchable polar patterns, which means it can change where the microphone picks sound up from. So right now we're kind of looking at the top photo. You can kind of see there's or even those side profiles, you can see one side silver, the other side has a black grill. So the switchable polar patterns allow us to pick up from just the silver side and not the black, or both. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is a nice feature. But let's go ahead and do another sound comparison here so you don't have to keep listening to me talk.
No, really, I think I could dunk on you.
But I bet I love
Kellogg's on YouTube. I'm just going to mute while it goes. All right.
So I'm currently recording this video using my Samson Go Mic. I am going to switch over to the laptop mic and let you hear how it sounds. I've switched over to the built-in mic in my laptop, and this is how it sounds.
I won't put you through anymore. I mean, it's comical how different it is. And when I said that the phone and the speaker, the microphone and the speaker in your phone are garbage, the laptop is to the 12th degree, the 100th degree, as we just learned. Laptop manufacturers are not putting high quality microphones in there. So a huge difference. Just one more, just for giggles.
I am going to switch over to the laptop mic and let you hear how it sounds. I've switched over to the built-in mic in my laptop, and this is how it sounds.
It makes me laugh. I'm sorry. So all that
and
hissing,
he's not taking that through a car wash while all of that is going on, because it certainly sounds like it.
I mean, laptop mics are just atrocious. So clearly a big improvement. And I think you could tell too that even just from when he was speaking into the Go mic at the front end of that audio clip, really, really clear. And I would say he was definitely closer to the microphone than the iPhone demo that we heard with the harpist earlier. But nonetheless, it's a crazy improvement for $42. You know, it does plug in via USB. So you do have like this extra cord, which can be a little bit of a nuisance if you're trying to really be mobile. And then there's a headphone port here on the side, which is a nice feature because you can, what that allows you to do is plug your headphones directly into that versus the headphone port on your computer. That headphone port, again, is made of the cheapest garbage parts that they can find. And so this will improve the audio quality out to you right from the get-go versus if you plugged into the headphone port of your computer. And it also, in most of your Zooms, your Skype for Business, you can self-monitor, meaning you can hear your voice in your headphones while you speak. So that way you can see, ooh, I have my mic volume up a little too loud. I need to adjust that setting so that it's not clipping or distorting. So Nick, is there anything coming through on the Q&A that we should address before we move on?
We did get a quick question here. Somebody mentioned that the MV88 is available in a USB-C cable. Are you familiar with that?
Yes. So there is a USB-C cable. It's obviously not plug and play into the Lightning port. You know, it has that extra cable, kind of like the feature that I talked about with the Samson Go Mic, how you do have that extra cable. So that is available as an option so that you can plug into other devices. Yeah.
Okay. So people that are attracted to the Shure, the MV88 do have other options if they so choose to explore that with devices with USBs.
Yes. And they do make a number of bundles that you can get the MV88 with a pair of nice high-end earbuds. You can get it with a nice little stand and a phone mount. So there are bundle options as well that come with some really neat accessories to make the experience that much better.
Okay, great. Well, these are two really approachable solutions for people that might be looking for microphone options for their classrooms or for themselves.
Great, agreed. And I should say that there's plenty of other options out there than the few that we're covering today. These are just a few of my favorites at all those things that are easy to use. They're not too expensive. And, you know, I really see the applications for the classroom.
Well, one thing you mentioned was the reverse polarity. So you mentioned you could record on either sides of the microphone or switchable polar patterns. Why might that be important for a music educator or somebody in a classroom?
Sure. Yeah, I've got a slide a little bit later on, but let's jump around a bit here because I think it's good and it's kind of present in mind. So polar patterns, it points to how the microphone element, so the little piece inside the microphone that is actually the mic, not the body and the housing and all that. It's how does it behave? Where does it pick the sound up from? So if you imagine holding an end address microphone, you know, like one that you hold in your hand, like a Shure SM58, that's the most popular microphone period, but handheld dynamic microphone on the planet Earth. All those terms I said so far do not indicate the polar pattern. The polar pattern on the microphone is cardioid. And what cardioid means, and actually I'm gonna give you a sneak peek behind the curtain here. Let's just jump right into this. And so this is a little shot here. I see my screen sharing stopped here. I'm sorry. Give me a second. Okay.
You can blame me. I totally threw you off your.
Oh, no, it's good. It's good. So I thought about putting this a little earlier on, but it makes sense. So these are polar patterns, and there's a bunch of data here, and it's kind of scary looking, right? Let me start the slideshow. Whoops. So if you look at this first one, omnidirectional, right? That means it's all encompassing. It picks up 360 degrees around the microphone. So it doesn't care if you're in front of it, behind it, to the left, to the right, over top, underneath. It picks up in all directions. This is great, right? There's some situations where we just want to be free and walk around and be able to turn our heads and not worry about if our microphone's picking us up well or not. Right now, I'm using an omnidirectional microphone, and I'll touch a little bit more on my setup. but I'm turning my head left and right, and you can hear a little bit of difference. You can hear where that hot spot is, but generally speaking, it doesn't really care. It picks it up really well. And I could turn the microphone around and you can still probably hear me pretty dang good. Okay, so there's 7 different common polar patterns up here, but there's really just 2. There's omnidirectional mics and cardioid, and different versions of cardioid. So here's cardioid, this kind of like upside down peach looking shape. And when you look at this, you want to think about like us coming from the top of it. That's where you're speaking into it. And that's what it's picking up. It picks up the most right in front of the microphone. So if you're holding that Shure SM58 in front of your mouth, it's going to pick you up really well while you're talking directly into it. If you flipped it all the way around, that's where we kind of see the top of the peach, if you will. And it does a really good job of rejecting anything from behind it. Now, why would we want to not have our microphone pick up what's behind it? Any thoughts, Nick?
Well, you know, I think like to a worship band setting or something like that, you just want very specific channels or very specific sounds coming in through that particular microphone.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe take that a step further. What if you had a wedge monitor down on the ground so that you can hear yourself as a singer? What happens when we put what's coming out of the speaker into the mic? What happens when that happens?
Get some pretty annoying sounds.
Yeah, feedback, right? So you create a feedback loop when you do that. So there are situations where we can't have what's coming out of our speaker going into our microphone. That's why there's different polar patterns, because there's different situations that require us to have a mic that behaves the right way based on the situation. So which one's better? It depends on the situation. So in a classroom, to get back to your original question, Nick, is why does that switchable polar pattern matter? Well, if I'm sitting behind my desk or standing at a podium and I have a microphone in front of me and I'm trying to address maybe a hybrid environment or virtual students, I want it to pick me up really well. But maybe if my air conditioner, or let's say I'm teaching from home, there's background noise, HVAC, there's other people in the room, maybe my dog's walking around, my wife is, making me a sandwich for lunch because she's awesome and she just did that for me. That's a situation where you might not want all that background noise. You just want what's right in front of you going into the mic. Omnidirectional, maybe you are walking around a classroom and you do have a hybrid environment where you have some students that are listening virtually, to be able to have the freedom to get up and walk away from your desk and not go, oh wait, my microphone's cardioid, I have to turn it around. It gives you a little bit more freedom. So you can just flip a switch and keep it on omnidirectional, or you can switch it as you go.
Great. So getting this right and kind of thinking through how you intend to use the microphone really determines the success level that you have or the frustration level that you encounter with the device later. So very important to take this into consideration before making a purchase.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to just kind of click back through. You're going to see some sneak peeks here. Okay, here we go. So I have one last microphone that I wanted to cover for virtual and kind of hybrid examples. And this is the Samson Go Mic. Now, this is a lavalier system. It's a wireless system. And so the device on the left that you see that the little clip-on mic is attached to, that's your transmitter. That's what you wear on your person. You clip it on your belt, or you could put it on a lanyard. You could, put it in your pocket, as long as that little antenna that's sticking up, that's this little guy here. As long as that's kind of not completely covered up by your clothing, and even if it is, it'll still probably do okay. That transmits wirelessly to the piece on the right, and that's the receiver. And this can get plugged into any type of device, from iOS, laptops, desktops, Android, doesn't matter. It has a bunch of cables that come with it, so you can hook it up. So what I love about this solution is that you don't have to worry about walking away from your desk, let's say, and worrying about how far you've gotten. Can you still hear me in the microphone? Because there's a point at which you get so far away from your microphone that it just, starts to get quieter. So I'm going to move my microphone away, getting farther and farther away. It's still, you can probably still hear me pretty good. I have a nice high quality microphone, but now I'm about 6 feet away, and there is a noticeable difference. So with this, you have the freedom that no matter where you go, your microphone stays on you, so you don't have to worry about speaking loud or anything like that. So another nice little bit about this wireless piece is you can actually add a second one of these belt pack transmitters and microphone to it. That's a pretty cool option. So it's $199 for the base package, one transmitter, one receiver, or for an extra $100, you can get an extra transmitter. That means you can have two people speaking in to the same device. So I really like this because it extends beyond this COVID environment. Let's say you are running a marching band rehearsal. If you had two directors or maybe a drum major and a director that needs to speak, rather than handing the microphone off, each person can have their own belt pack and come out of the same PA system. Or in a classroom environment, you could have two instructors distanced, and they can both communicate to students on the other end without having to share a microphone or worry about that. So that's kind of a neat thing. You can use it as a 1-channel or a 2-channel. Now, this is a 2.4 gigahertz transmission, which basically means it kind of lives in this same wireless frequency world as a lot of like Wi-Fi type devices. So there's not really a lot of FCC guidelines or laws or anything in there. So it's nice, but it's real easy to step on the toes or get your toes stepped on. So that's a consideration. You can't really use a lot of these in the same space, or at least not, especially if you don't have like real thick cement walls, or if it's one classroom after another. So that's a consideration you want to keep in mind. Now, I didn't find a sound clip that kind of gave us an A/B versus a phone. We've heard what phones and laptops sound like so far. So we'll hear what this one sounds like. And I picked this one because it's not the best. And it's an example of why loud isn't always best. And you'll hear when this gentleman speaks, you will hear some clarity, but when he really starts to get a little bit louder, you hear his microphone clip. And we'll talk about clipping in just a second.
Mary had a little lamb, her fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, that sheep was sure to go.
Right, so we already can hear that it sounds a lot better than the phone and the laptop examples that we've heard earlier. And he has this clipped kind of in the middle of his chest, as opposed to on his collar or a tie or something along those lines. But one thing you could hear that little bit of distortion, right? And what's nice about the Samson unit, which he didn't take advantage of, is you can turn the volume up not only at the receiver end, which is typical, or which would go into a mixer, or in this case, into your laptop or your phone, which you can also adjust the microphone input level on if you dig into the settings. But I like hardware. I don't like having to dig into software when I don't have to. But you can also adjust it from the transmitter end. And if you open up this little piece here, there's a couple AA batteries and a little tool that allows you to adjust the gain level. And so turning everything all the way up is usually, especially when you're in a wireless application, is usually not the best choice. This gentleman didn't catch that. So I thought that was a good lesson, that louder isn't always better. So far, just to recap, we've seen a real simple plug and play option that's really maximized with phones and tablets. We've seen one that kind of works with laptops. It's really designed for the laptop and desktop computer in mind. And then this unit that really can do everything and wirelessly, and add that second body pack.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. This is a big help on mics.
Absolutely. So let's keep things moving here, and let's look at, so we're improving the audio on the student's end so far. What can we do to help ourselves? Now, I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite earbuds and headphones that are really affordable in the grand scheme of things, but any earbuds, even the cheap Apple pods that come with your phone, will be an improvement over your phone, your laptop, etc. But these by NEE are really great. And what these actually are, so I have a pair of these, and as a vocalist, I use a wireless in-ear monitor system when I perform with a rock band that I'm in. And so these are the same kind of professional, loop it over your ear kind of look that you see big artists playing with. But you can use them in your personal life too, which I think is really cool. That's something that NEE has kind of taken that professional product and made it also work in a consumer world as well. So for $50, you're getting a whole lot more than you would out of like a consumer grade earbud. And I would say in my opinion, but it really is an objective truth at this point. So I love those. Or you can get a little bundle, which comes with the hardwire and it comes with a Bluetooth attachment, and you can kind of see that they detach from the actual earpiece. So if you want to use the wire, you don't want to have to worry about connecting Bluetooth, you can do that. Or if you want to be kind of wireless and not be tethered to your laptop or your phone, you can use the Bluetooth and have a little bit of freedom there. Now, if some people just hate the thought of having something in their ear, they hear themselves in their head, it drives them nuts. I get it. It took me a long time to warm up to earbuds myself, especially as a performer. So of course you could use an over-the-ear style headphone like this. The Audio-Technica M20X on the left there is a wired option. They actually have an M20, an M30, an M40, an M50, and they just go up in price and quality. And when you go with a brand like Audio-Technica or Shure or Sennheiser or AKG, these are kind of some of the pro audio brands in the space that we in Amro kind of operate in. You really do get what you pay for, so you don't have to worry about bargain hunting. As long as you're buying one of these name brands that's available through Amro, you're going to be pretty safe. But for $50, awesome pair of headphones. If you wanted to do Bluetooth, we're back to our friends at MEE. Again, that kind of consumer pro audio crossover is where they excel. So naturally, I gravitate to them for a pair of Bluetooth headphones at only $79.99. So you've got wired and wireless options there too. Any headphone, any earbud will be an improvement. And Nick, this is something that you brought up to me, and I didn't originally have plans of talking about interfaces. So we just looked at some input devices and output devices, right? A microphone is an input device, a headphone is an output device. An interface kind of gives you more options with those two things. So what is an interface? An interface is as simple as a little box that gives you one or more inputs for you to plug in a sound source like a microphone. And it has some outputs that can go to headphones, a basic 2x2, meaning 2 inputs and 2 outputs. We'll have 2 microphone or instrument inputs and 2 speaker outputs in addition to a headphone. So I could have my actual speakers, my studio monitors as they're called, or computer speakers, whatever you're using. Those are 1/4 inch inputs or outputs rather, and a headphone jack on the front. And the reason why you might consider an interface over some of the other like USB options that are just plug and play is you get a little bit more control, and you end up using what's called a DAW, or a digital audio workstation or workspace. And that's recording software. DAW is just a fancy word for recording software. So with that DAW, you'll be able to do just that. You'll be able to manipulate the sound. You'll be able to add effects. You'll be able to do a greater level of equalization, and then you can record. So if you were in a band room environment and not only did you want to pick up the sound and send it over Zoom to some students that are playing along virtually, you could also record it, the whole session, and play it back for your students so they can hear how they're sounding. If the flute section's missing their entrance or something like that, you can play back. So an interface does typically give you a little bit more flexibility when you're talking about it, because they will come with some sort of a DAW or recording software. And I'll talk about my favorite that's inexpensive, but there is some setup involved, right? So you have to be a little bit, familiar with downloading applications on your computer, and you can watch some YouTube videos and get up and running pretty quick. I don't want you to scare you away, but there's some stuff involved with using recording software. Now, right now I'm using an interface and a microphone plugged into it, and I'm not using my recording software at all. Zoom allows me to select the interface as my input and my output device. So as far as the audio that I'm hearing, it's coming out of the headphone jack of my audio box, or my interface rather. And the sound signal that you're hearing from me is a microphone plugged into it. And I have volume controls for each of those independently right on the interface. It'll also,
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Jeremy.
Nick.
Well, one of the areas that we're starting to see questions about this is people trying to create these live play along environments or these hybrid models where we've got, 50% of our band or orchestra in person in the classroom and some people at home playing along with the band. And this is where we're starting to see some more questions involving that. So how might a setup like that work if a director's exploring that as an option where they're trying to create a one-way audio play at home environment for students?
Well, first and foremost, let's touch on what you just ended with. One-way audio is important because, well, it'd be nice to be able to pipe in all the kids that are playing on Zoom through some speakers or something so that we have one big band, right? Well, the delay of the internet makes that impossible. I have heard that there's a couple app developers that are working on solutions for that or may have some things out, but man, I'm really skeptical. I mean, there's an audio delay with a copper mic cable. So going over the internet plus all the cable connections in between, let's just go ahead and say it's going to be one way. You could have a microphone set up in the band room that you can hear the band that's in the room, and the clarinet player at home can hear that coming through his or her headphones or speakers and be able to play along. So that's a one-way thing, and that would work. An interface can definitely make that easier because you have two inputs, right? It's a hub, if you will. You can have more than one device plugged in at a time. So I could have one mic or two mics micing up the band. And then as the director, I could have a little lavalier microphone or something like that hooked up as well so that I can, between speaking, the students at home aren't struggling to hear me coming through the ambient room mics that are designed to pick up the band. And then you want to be able to control those levels separately, right? You want, if the whole band's a lot louder than the band director, well, nah, that might not be true. My high school band director was pretty loud. Yeah, you want to be able to control those volumes separately. So that's how an interface could help. But certainly any of the other devices that we looked at so far, you could have that same experience. You just don't necessarily, with the first two in particular, you don't get to have those two channels, right, that you can control independently.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. And there's a million types of interfaces out there. They range from, as we see here, from $100. They go into the thousands for, and you get different levels of recording quality. So they aren't all built equal. And again, you do usually get what you pay for pretty much anything in a USB interface. But usually how they're marketed is like a 2x2, meaning 2 inputs, 2 outputs. If it's like a 2x4, that means there's 2 inputs, meaning you can put 2 microphones into it, and then you can put it out to 4 different speakers. In a recording environment like my home studio, I just have 2 speakers that I want to listen to. But if I was really doing a lot of mixing, I might have 2 sets of reference monitors so that I can hear how it sounds through different types of speakers, so I don't have to like run in and out of my car to hear it on, a different device. So my favorite 2-channel USB interface is the Presonus Audiobox 96 USB. It's $99. It's a 2 input, 2 output. It's what I'm using right now. It has, as the 96 in the name refers to the sample rate. So it's 96K audio, which is really high quality. 48K is CD quality. So it's double that. And you can get up to 192 is kind of the industry standard for like a really high end recording, but 96, if you could tell me the difference between 96 and 192 without having a real good ear for it, I would challenge you in most situations. But it's awesome. It comes with Presonus's proprietary recording software called Studio One, which there's a bazillion great YouTube videos to make it much easier to understand, but it is also a full-fledged recording software suite that professional studios around the world use. It comes with what they call Studio One Artist, which is kind of like not the super entry-level one. It's more expanded, and it comes with some goodies, but it's not like loaded with all these features that you'll be overwhelmed by and not be able to be like, this is too much stuff. So I like that. Then I put another Presonus piece. I didn't put the name of it down. I'm kind of embarrassed. It's the AR8. I just threw this in, so I apologize. The model is AR8, like Alfa Romero and the number 8. And what it is, it's an 8-channel mixer, just like you might use like on Pep Band. Maybe you have your keyboard, your bass guitar, some other things plugged into that. But it's also an interface. It has a little USB on it. So I love this for band because you can use it for a Pep Band gig or something along those lines whenever you need a little 8-channel mixer. But it's also an interface. So you can have up to 8 devices plugged in, and you can record each one of those 8 microphones and control each one of them, go back and mix each one of those independently, or you can just, however you have the mixer set up at whatever levels you are, it'll capture that as well. And you can record that, excuse me, into your recording software. Again, it comes with that Studio One software that I was speaking about. Or you can record right onto an SD card that's built that you can push right into the mixer. So I love that. Maybe you will never need to use an interface ever again after this COVID environment. You're not being very creative if you think you don't, but most band rooms need a mixer. So if you're looking for something that's multi-purpose and that you don't have to have 2 different things, it's usually a lot less expensive. For $500, it's a really, really robust mixer in and of itself, plus the built-in interface and free recording software just makes it, I have to mention it. I spec them all the time.
And tell me again, the model number, that was the Presonus
AR8.
AR8, perfect. So if somebody's looking for something kind of a hybrid or multi-purpose unit, it sounds like a great option for them.
Yeah, there's also an AR12, an AR16. You can get higher channel counts in those, but they're all both mixers and interfaces. Great pieces.
That's great.
And I'd be remiss not to mention that Presonus, through the Music People, offers a 5% educator discount. So we pass along a discount to Amro, who can extend it to you as well. So if you do have like a system of any type, they make speakers, they make interfaces, all types of stuff. That is something that they really look out for educators on. Not all companies do that. So that'd be a great thing to consider.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy.
I saw a question pop up there. Is it something we want to address now, Nick?
Yeah, that was it. What was just refreshing the model number on that Presonus AR8. So you got it.
Great. All right. So we talked a little bit about kind of virtual and then hybrid environments, but what about just being in the classroom, and what does that mean for instructors? And something that we're getting a lot of calls on right now is that there's some good studies out there that show that the louder you speak, the more water vapor that comes out of your mouth and into the air. And obviously we want to reduce that. So one way to do that is to have teachers not screaming through their mask, and also lifting their voice using Pro Audio. So we're going to look at a couple options, and these packages are going to include everything that you need. But of course, we have all the individual components as well. If you already have a speaker and you just need some sort of wireless microphone or vice versa, we of course have those options. So one of the most important things, we're going to look at these 2 different packages. The question that you need to have answered before you call your friends at Amro is, how many different teachers will be using one of these devices in the building at the same time? It makes a big difference. We touched on a little bit earlier, and we'll dig into that. So the first one we're going to look at is the Samson Xp 106 WDE. Yes, I've shown a lot of Samson gear. They just make great stuff for schools, and it's really affordable and it works. I'm just a big fan of Samson. So this unit comes with a little rechargeable Bluetooth speaker that you see there. It has a built-in mixer that you can see on this is the back panel here on the right. So you can plug in a microphone or a 1/4 inch, which is your input for a guitar, a bass guitar, keyboards, electric drums. You even have a little aux in. So if you wanted to put in like an iPod or something, as the name implies, Bluetooth, you can actually hook up your phone to play music via Bluetooth. So when the kiddos take off, you can jam out in your classroom. And then it also comes with this little USB receiver. And so earlier we looked at the other Samson unit that was like more of like a square deck of cards kind of size thing. This is the receiver, and it just gets plugged right into the back of the speaker. Now your body pack transmitter is just the same as we saw earlier. And this one comes with an ear set microphone. So this is kind of like a wire frame. It's pretty malleable, so you can bend it to fit the shape of your head really comfortably. And it has a little windscreen on there. So we're really getting that microphone right in front of your mouth so that there's no chance that you have to scream. And it'll of course be amplified through the speaker wirelessly. So you can roam around the classroom and that audio will come out, and you can just adjust the level on the back. These are your little volume level knobs for each individual channel. So this is another great option for a band room too, so that you can, as a director, be able to speak and not have to scream over the band. And then maybe you also have some other devices that you want to plug in so the band's playing along with an MP3 or a metronome or something like that. So super usable thing, not just for voice lift in the classroom. There's 1,000 ways you could use a little micro PA like this. Marching band, I could keep going on about that. So that is the Samson Xp 106 WDE. Now, the first thing we started talking about was how many will be used at the same time in the building. And while, yes, you can connect to this via Bluetooth to play music or something like that from your phone, it is also a Bluetooth operation between the receiver and the transmitter. This is really odd. Not a lot of wireless microphone companies use Bluetooth technology. But Samson does. And it's in that 2.4 gigahertz range that we spoke about earlier. It's basically a Wi-Fi thing, but the problem is you can't use too many of these in space. So if you had 20 classrooms in your school, this probably is not going to be the solution for you. But if you just want to use this in the band room, maybe the choir director wants to use one, and a soft-spoken instructor or two, as long as you're kind of separated, with some brick walls and that sort of thing, it'll be fine. And how far is far enough? Well, Bluetooth Incorporated, or whoever makes Bluetooth, usually says that Bluetooth devices have a range of 30 feet line of sight. And line of sight means with no obstructions between the devices, so the transmitter and the receiver, in this case, the body pack and that little USB stick. So I'm sure if you've had your phone hooked up to a little Bluetooth speaker around the house, and then you ran upstairs or outside to throw something in a trash can, the audio starts to cut out. That's because of that line of sight. And if you get too far, even line of sight, you can usually get farther than 30, but that's something you just want to consider. Now, the nice thing about this whole setup is it's $380, and that's a really, really great price for a speaker, and with wireless included. We're going to look at another option that doesn't have these kind of Bluetooth 2.4 gigahertz restrictions. But before we do that, I want to put out a word of warning. If you go on the internet and you start looking for wireless microphone systems, you'll find all sorts of stuff ranging from probably around $100 all the way into tens of thousands. And why don't I just buy one of those, since this one has this limitation? Well, the ones that you'll find online are going to be probably one of three options. There'll be UHF, which is the most popular. And this is just the way, the technology in which the wireless devices connect with one another. Most wireless microphone systems are UHF. And it's great. And there's all different quality microphones with UHF technology. Some of them can handle 8 to 12. Some of them can handle 50 to 100 channels in the same general area. The difference is the technology behind them and how you coordinate those wireless frequencies. UHF is going to not be a great solution when you have a lot of wireless being operated in one building. So just be careful with that. Unless you spend a significant amount of money per channel, I would say probably starting around $800 to $1,000 per channel is where you'll be able to get, 40, 50 devices working flawlessly without having to bring in a wireless specialist to do frequency coordination, which all sounds scary, as it should, because it's a big, scary world. So just be careful. Don't assume that just because it says you can do 20 channels in one space, it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. That's in an ideal environment. So here's another solution that you can basically use as many as you want as many channels as you want in a building, as long as there aren't windows or glass walls between the buildings, because it uses IR technology or infrared wireless technology. And you all should be familiar with infrared because that's what most of your TV remotes operate off of. If you look at the top, there's a little glass eyeball there, and it sends an infrared light to the cable box or the satellite box that you use. And that's why you kind of always have to like get over your coffee table, or you can't use it from the kitchen in the living room if there's not a clear line of sight between the two. And this is usually, as far as a wireless microphone is concerned, not ideal. I want it to work. I want to be able to bounce from one side of the stage to the other and not worry about if a little light is making its way across the room. However, in a classroom where we want to have one in this class and one next door and another one next door to that and so on and so forth, if we want one in every single room, IR is really the best option because it just stays inside the walls. There's no transmitting light through the walls unless you had a lot of holes in it or something. So this system comes with a IR microphone transmitter, which you see around the young lady's neck there. So it's on a lanyard, but you can clip it on your belt and that sort of thing too, or hold it in your hand. And then it transmits to that little speaker. That thing is about 1.5 feet tall or so, 2 feet tall. And that just sits on the desk and you can adjust your volume up and down. You could also plug in an MP3 player or a laptop if you needed audio to come out of that. Maybe a student virtually has a question and you want the whole class to hear it, you can have it come out of there as well. Same with the Samson, I should have mentioned that. And the unit is rechargeable, as is the last one. And the little microphone that you wear around the neck, that too is rechargeable. It comes with a little battery option there. And now this unit's a little bit more expensive. This comes in at $799, and it's just, the options with IR out there aren't plentiful. There's some other options from other brands, but TeachLogic with this Quantum 2 model is really the most cost-effective unit that I'm aware of. And they're awesome because TeachLogic specializes, as their brand name implies, in the classroom and technology for teachers. This is just one of many options, even within the Quantum line. So you can get this with a handheld wireless microphone as well. They also have kits that you can have permanently installed speakers in the ceiling. If you don't want to have this little speaker kind of kicking around, it does get a little bit more expensive when you do that. But just please know, this is just one of many options that TeachLogic has. And if you did want to explore those, you could Google TeachLogic and find their website to explore those, or you can chat with myself and the folks over at AMRO. Now, I think I saw a question come in there, Nick. Why don't we pause to answer that?
Yeah, just got a quick question here. So somebody is asking if they're not a big fan of headphones or earbuds, what might be a good portable speaker or alternative sound solution for something like that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm glad that was asked because I meant to mention it on this slide here. So that little Samson unit, that speaker is, again, probably only 18 to 24 inches tall and maybe 12 inches wide and deep. So it's really small. It's really lightweight. It's rechargeable, which I love. You can also plug it into the wall and just use it. If you're worried, you don't want to worry about the battery life. But the really nice thing there is you can get it without all the wireless components. And so that model without the wireless is XP106. And they even have larger versions as well. That's the 6 in the model name refers to a 6-inch speaker, but they have larger ones as well if you need to get a little bit more volume. And so that is available as well. And it's obviously a little less expensive. I don't have that price off the top of my head, but Nick, why don't we offline, I'll give you the pricing on that so you can pass it along to the person that's speaking. But
right.
The short answer is just a little speaker. If you don't want to have to have anything, on your head or in your ears, an external speaker will go a long way.
Yeah. Anything other than the laptop is what you're saying.
Basically. I mean, even if you had a little Bluetooth speaker that you use to listen to music around your house, even that would be a great solution. If you already have something, test that out. You don't always need to, buy something new. Sometimes you have the solution in front of you, just don't realize it.
Perfect.
And I did want to, with that, you did ask me to talk a little bit about types of microphones, Nick, and I think it's an important thing. And we did jump and look at a little bit of this, but I'm going to kind of work it backwards. So we've looked at ear set mic, right? Those are the little ones with a wire frame that goes around one or two of your ears to bring the microphone really close to your mouth. We have headset microphones. That's more like a band that wraps around the back of your head. Think Michael Jackson, Britney Spears, fitness instructors, right? That kind of, it's similar to an ear set, but a little bit bulkier, but also, a little bit more rugged and dependable as far as longevity goes. Lavalier, that's the type you clip on your collar. And then a handheld, of course, that you just hold in your hand and hold up to your mouth. So those are all the form factors. And I want to dispel one of the myths that one of these doesn't sound better than the other. That's just the form factor in which the actual microphone resides in. So this is really just a personal preference. What works for you? What's comfortable for you? Kind of like the headphone question we just got. An ear set is only better than a headset based off the person's opinion. Now, the things that do matter, and we touched on polar patterns earlier, but I'll bring it back, is the types of microphones and the types of polar patterns. So types of microphones, there's more than two, but 95 to 98% of the microphones in the world are either dynamics or condensers. And I like to think of these as the engine of the microphone, right? Just like for a car, you've got a gas engine, you've got an electric motor or a diesel engine, right? Those are kind of the big ones, or some hybrid. But really, that's what we're talking about. And an engine can be in, as we see below, a truck, a sedan, a van, a convertible, an SUV. It doesn't matter. It's just the engine. So, and there's pros and cons to dynamics and condensers. And then we get more specific when we get down to the polar patterns that we've already discussed. So just really quickly, dynamic versus condenser, which one's better? Just like the form factor, it depends on the situation. Dynamic microphones versus condenser, one of the pros of a dynamic is it doesn't require any external power. So you just kind of can plug it into just about anything and it'll work. Whereas a condenser requires some external power, and we usually refer to that as 48 volt or phantom power. So a lot of mixers, every USB interface on the planet Earth has phantom power built into it. So that's something to be considered. Now, what's the advantage of that? Why would someone make a condenser microphone that requires extra power? That seems like a whole lot of work. Well, the actual electronics inside that condenser microphone are really, really sensitive. And that allows you to get these really great quiet articulations and little details and artifacts, right? I'm using a condenser microphone. I got real close and it picked up. You could hear my tongue and my cheek smacking. It may have grossed you out. I'm sorry, but that's awesome because it gives you this incredible clarity and detail. Dynamic microphones, they don't give you all that. They're limited in their dynamic range. So that's why you would go through that. One reason you'd go through that trouble of getting that phantom power. But the condenser with that sensitivity, they are sensitive. They're easy to break. So if you have to lug this thing back and forth to the gym and back to the band room, and kids are going to be dropping it, a condenser is definitely not the option. You're going to want to go with a dynamic microphone. You can drop a dynamic microphone on the ground. Shure SM58, again, most popular microphone of all time. How many of those have you dropped in your house of worship or at school? They just never die, and they're a dynamic microphone. So there's something to be said about durability. And the last thing to know about dynamic versus condenser is how loud is the thing that you're going to be miking up. A dynamic microphone, a trumpet blaring, a metal screamer singer, it can handle a lot of sound pressure level, or SPL, which is measured in decibels or dBs. So dynamics are great for really loud sources, snare drums, marching snares especially, right? You can't put a condenser on those. If I screamed into this microphone right now, I could very well blow the thing apart. They're really sensitive. So they're great at picking up that detail, but you got to be careful with what you're miking up. And then just to kind of come back to polar patterns, we don't got to go through the whole thing again, but I like to think of this as what type of vehicle, right? We already talked about the engine. The form factor is kind of like what color, right? Or what's the interior look like? The polar pattern is kind of like do you need a truck or a sedan? What's better? It depends, right? If I need to haul my camper around, I'm not going to get too far with a sedan. I need a truck for that. But if I need something that's compact and more efficient on gas, let's say, a sedan might be the better option. So just like we talked about earlier, whether it's that cardioid pattern or that omnidirectional pattern, it depends. And some microphones are multi-pattern, meaning that you can switch the pattern from omnidirectional to cardioid or some of these others. So I hope that with this, you've learned a little something about microphones and wireless gear, and just maybe some general terminology with pro audio equipment in general that makes approaching this technology a little bit less intimidating. But even if it is, that's fine. We don't expect you to get all the answers out of this. You reach out to your friends at AMRO, and if they don't have the answers directly, they have them through me. And if there's at any point, we want to get on the phone, the three parties, we can absolutely do that. I'm always happy to discuss this stuff. This is a passion of mine, as is school music. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without my school music program and some of the fantastic band directors I've had over the years. So I want to thank everybody for the time and open it up for if there's any questions or comments.
Yeah, Jeremy, I really appreciate that. That was outstanding. And hopefully the folks joining us and listening later will feel much more comfortable shopping some of this product, identifying what some of their needs are and how to select a product based on those needs. So I really appreciate that. We got a quick question here. Oh, just a quick thank you. So Jeremy, thank you coming in from the audience. Again, that was real helpful. As a quick reminder to everybody, tomorrow we're going to be hosting another conversation. We'll have a panel discussion on the nuts and bolts of the upcoming fall semester for middle school band directors. We're going to be talking about laying out your instrument storage rooms. We're going to be talking about how to sanitize instrument, your expectations for your classrooms. And so really looking forward to that conversation. So again, to everybody joining us, thanks so much. Jeremy, bravo. Thank you. It was so good to have you. So good to see you. And I appreciate you sharing some of your expertise. So for everyone joining us, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for conversations with music educators as part of our After Hours series. Everybody have a great night. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everyone.